The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max NXT Review.
Welcome, everybody, to Wrestling to the Max's NXT review for April 12th, 2017. And we, of course, are brought to you by W2Mnet.com. That's right. It's the one place where you can find all our great podcasts, plus a lot more content that you're not going to want to miss out on. If you love wrestling, that's the place to go. We got other wrestling podcasts, plus we got some cool written reviews and other written content in the world of wrestling. Plus, we also got gaming and sports as well, so we've got a well-rounded amount of content for you guys. Go check out W2Mnet.com. Also, hey, go subscribe to Wrestling to the Max if you haven't done it already on iTunes, and hit us up with a 5-star if you can. That'll, of course, get us a little bit more exposure. You know, if you really enjoy us, you enjoy what we've got going here, share it with your friends, and, you know, like I said, the rating really gives us a boost, gets the exposure going for us. All right, well, I'm your host, Gary Vaughan. Of course, with me is Mr. Paul Leazar.
Hey-yo.
And boy, Paul, we've got NXT, which has got a lot of brand new faces coming into play now, so I'm excited about talking about this episode.
I am too, because I feel like there's a whole lot to talk about. But first things first, how do you feel about that new NXT theme, Gary?
You know, the new NXT theme is okay. Personally, I kind of like the one that was before this. This one's okay. This one sounds a little generic for me, if I can say it that way. It's not bad. I'm not going to hate on it. It's just not my favorite.
There are parts about this one that I think I like a little bit more. Like the riff. Like if you go back and listen to the beginning of our theme, listeners, that the guitar riff really reminds me a lot of the old school ECW intro that they used to do for Hardcore TV, and that's sort of, I think, what they were going for is this like underground-y feel, like, you know, NXT still isn't mainstream or anything like that, even though anybody who's, I mean, I guess fans like us, or if you have the network, are probably pretty much into it, but I like that part. I think the lyrics are fairly generic, though.
Maybe that's where I'm coming from. You know, I'm very much, I love, you know, of course, you know, understanding what's going on with the lyrics and all that. Plus, I kind of am a person who really gets with not just the rhythm, but the melody. And maybe I'm not just a fan of the melody itself.
I think that's fair.
I think that's where I'm coming from on it. But I think you're right. I mean, there is that cool part. I love the build-up parts of it. You know, that I'm a huge fan of that and most music, you know. So I understand where you're coming from. You know, like I said, it's not bad. I'm not going to hate on it. I think it's fine for what they're doing here. But I think I just got so used to the one previous, and I don't even know the name of it, but yeah, I got used to it. And I be honest with you, though, themes are great, but I usually kind of fast forward through them anyway. So I'm not the kind of guy who's going to sit there and play it and do something else. I'm going to fast forward the junk.
Right.
Know, so.
Well, I mean, if we're going to fast forward through the junk, then let's just dive right into the opening match here. Aleister Black takes on Corey Hollis. Lasts 30 seconds because Corey Hollis hypes himself up to no end, runs in, only did a spin kick to the face, and man, Aleister Black just looks so impressive.
You know, it's so funny. Aleister Black is really honestly brand new to me. Now, Paul, you probably watched this guy on the indies. I'm sure. Tell me where this guy is from really quickly. Is he from Revolution Pro? Where is he from in the UK?
So Tommy End got his start, at least my first interaction with him was Westside Extreme Wrestling in Germany. But he's from, Jesus. I'm forgetting the country he's from right now. It's Western Europe, though.
Yes, he's from, I believe they said, no, he's not from Holland.
Holland
I'm already
sounds
forgetting.
Right.
It's either Holland or somewhere like that. I knew it sounded very cold. But it's not Poland, I know that.
No,
but,
it's not Poland.
Yeah, but what's interesting about him, and that's why I was asking you, and Tommy End, you're right, that's his name. For anybody out there who wants to know more about this guy and go YouTube him, go look up Tommy End. I have not personally done it myself. I need to. But from what the short exposure, what I get it from him, I just like his presence. I like the way that NXT is presenting him. And this entrance, post NXT TakeOver Orlando, is still amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they hyped it up in Orlando, which they're supposed to. It's a takeover.
Right.
But still, in his everyday NXT entrance, it's still as beautiful as ever. So this guy, they're doing the right thing with the presentation with him. He's a little creepy. He's got that just thing that I don't know what I can't really put my finger on it, but he's got something about him that kind of exudes star. And I also like, in this match, I mean, you fully think this is a new guy. He's going to get a few shots in. The other guy's going to get a few shots in. This will take more than, 13, 15 seconds. No, it didn't. So here you go. I mean, they did the right thing, right? They put him over really good here. Just one kick and the guy's out.
Mm-hmm.
I like it though, because once again, if you have that guy that's a star, you got to provide that star factor, and that's he's better than most people. So I like it, man.
I'm a big fan of Tommy End. First of all, like I said, West Side Extreme Wrestling is where I think he first sort of came up and built his name, and then once Brit Wrestling took off, Progress, Rev Pro, any promotion pretty much with a name in Europe booked this guy, and then he found his way over to the States, some with PWG and Evolve and some other places. But what they've done here in WWE, and I got to give them a lot of credit for this, is they pretty much just took what was already there, right? Tommy End got over being a hard striker, and he got over, later on, at least in his wrestling career, with a lot of sort of dark, satanic connections without ever really implying it, and sort of supremacy and a lot of other things like that. And what WWE has basically done is taken all of that and turned it up to 11, which is what they do, right, with any sort of gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've done that beautifully here. And Aleister Black, like, I'm going to keep talking about this for as long as NXT does this, because you see some guys come in with just regular entrances, but you can tell the guys they have high hopes for based on the types of entrances they give them. You look at Shinsuke, you look at Bobby Roode now. Before this, you look at Finn Balor, and those are really probably your best examples right now. But those are the guys who are immediately coming up to the main roster, or will come up to the main roster, and are going to get a huge impact. They're going to have all this steam behind them, and they're going to probably immediately challenge for the top titles like Finn Balor, and maybe like Shinsuke does before the year is over. I feel like we're going to get that with Aleister Black. I think he's going to be NXT champion before the end of the year, and I think he might even end up leapfrogging a whole bunch of the other guys that are already there, and we'll see him on the main roster maybe in the same time frame that we saw Shinsuke.
Wow, that's a big prediction, Paul. That's an amazing prediction, and you know what? I would be completely happy with it from what I'm seeing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at him as a guy that honestly could be a 2-year NXT guy. But if he really does get shot to the moon and he does that, you're not going to hear me complain at all. You won't. If it's a Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania 34 debut, I will not cry at all. Well, I might cry because I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
But just from what I've seen from this guy, I'm already excited by the presentation. Like you said, it's up to the 11th degree.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get more. That's what's exciting about this process. But, I mean, it's just really cool to see them put a lot behind a guy that's so talented. We'll talk about another guy that is, kind of here in NXT, and we'll talk about his entrance too. Maybe more of the generic, but that's not what really counts in that situation. But this situation, it means everything, because this is a new guy in front of an audience that has never seen him.
Correct. Yeah, a largely unfamiliar audience with him. Just because I think NXT diehards that are there in Full Sail every week are only paying attention to NXT and maybe WWE main product, and that's about it. Every once in a while, I feel like you'll get some crowds in there that know who these guys are for the most part. And I think maybe 2 years ago, you could say the NXT crowd was a lot different. I think nowadays they're just fanatical for the product.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about Aleister Black really quickly is he's a guy that I could totally see myself buying his T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem with that is I'm a religious guy. I may have a problem buying a shirt because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of satanic symbols, and I probably won't be able to. So I'm going to kind of screw it and out of luck on that, unless it just says, Aleister Black. So we'll see how it works out.
They are doing PG television, right? So I doubt they're going to have any overt relations to Satan or anything like that on a T-shirt, but you never know.
Yeah. I like I said, I'm a religious guy, but I love the presentation. Bring it. I love horror movies, and this guy is straight out of a horror movie. I could totally see this guy coming out and scaring you to death. So
I agree. Yeah, I mean, he'll sidekick you to death pretty much.
woo.
We get some highlights of Ty Dillinger's SmackDown debut, and then he gets to cut a promo saying that next week on NXT he's going to take on EY in a steel cage match to negate the Sanity influence there, which that sounds pretty amazing, so totally down for that. And then Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, hashtag DIY, they take on a couple of jobbers, and really I would only classify one as a jobber. That's Michael Blaze, as he teams up with Dylan Miley, who really needs a new name because I don't think that name fits him, but he's a large, very muscular human being who dominates his time in the ring. He makes the tag out, and Blaze just gets absolutely dominated by Gargano and Ciampa to get them the easy squash victory here. And then post-match, Miley goes nuts on his partner, absolutely destroys him, and looks like we have a new WWE-built guy coming into the mid-card area here in Dylan Miley.
You know what's funny about this whole thing is the fact that Michael Blaze, the guy that's not so much the guy that's is going to get over in this situation, he's got the better name. His name is kind of a cool name. I kind of like that. I dig it. Dylan Miley. I kind of feel like every time he gets through with the match, they're just going to say, "That's Miley." I mean, I feel like I'm talking about Miley Cyrus, so it is a bad name. I don't like Dylan's fine. That could be a fine first name, but they need to change the last name. It just does not fit him personally. That's in my opinion. This was kind of fun to watch because you see DIY in this match and you think, oh, another squash, haha. But let's be honest for a minute there. I mean, Miley was taking care of business, and DIY was on the ropes for a minute or two. You had Gargano take his lumps, even Ciampa as well. So I appreciate that. But in the end, it works out the way it's going to work out, and that's DIY wins the match, and it wasn't too hard for them to do so. So it's fine for what it is. What I think the main point here, and there's a couple, is the fact that DIY just, doing their thing, right? They're sticking around, doing their thing. Victory, ho-hum. But Miley here, I love it because you're presented with a new guy, a ruthless guy who looks terrifying. I mean, my God, he looks like, he wants to rip everyone's head off in the arena. So I love that. And I like the presentation that they gave us here with him without having to do a whole lot of fireworks or anything else. It's just, this is a new guy. Oh my God, look at him. He's a killer. And so I think they did a good job, Paul. I completely found it okay. It wasn't about the match with this. It was about presenting news talent.
I completely agree with you. Dylan Miley looks like one of those guys who's just got one of those single names written all over him, like WWE likes to do these days. And he looks Russian to me. I feel like he would fit well with Rusev if they ever wanted to make a tag team with this guy. But I'm interested in the guy. Like, for 4 minutes in the ring and the beatdown included and all that, like, he got my attention.
So you couldn't call him Lundgren.
No, I don't think you could do that.
You couldn't do that, but you could do something similar, I think, and make it one name. I'd have to look in a book of Russian names, but Rusev works good, right? It sounds good. It fits. It sounds kind of rough. I'm sure there's a whole book of Russian names that you can give him one of those names to kind of. I just think Dylan Miley. It sounds more like a cruiserweight.
Yeah,
to be honest with you,
it definitely sounds like a jobber name.
Yeah, definitely. So, I guarantee what they're doing here, Paul, is they're throwing it out there. They're just getting him exposure, see how he kind of works out, and then from there they'll just change it all. Right. They're just new entrants, everything. So
yeah, totally. Let's the next portions of the show here focus on the women. We get a video package of Ember Moon, sort of as they're tearing down the ring and the entranceway and stuff like that from NXT TakeOver. Ember Moon comes out to the arena and sort of looks around, and they do a really great job here of sort of splicing in scenes as she's walking past it from the match of her like fighting on the outside with her, or her standing where the ring was, and seeing the big highlights from the match, right? And she talks about how this was supposed to be her time, and she was supposed to be the one to deal Asuka her first loss, but it turned out that Asuka was the one who dealt her first loss. And now she's more motivated than ever to be the one in the 160-plus victories that Asuka has combined across, house shows and NXT television and TakeOver and everything like that. I really enjoyed this a lot. I think they know what Ember Moon is sort of lacking right now, and that's straight microphone sort of interactions with an interviewer or commentary or anything like that. I don't think she does so well with that right now, but they definitely hit it out of the park with this video package.
Yeah, they do a great job. It's WWE, right? They're gonna amaze you every time, and it looks great. The presentation was fine. The one thing I will say is, going through this video, it really kind of started to make me wonder, what are they really trying to present with Ember Moon? Because I think when you get Ember Moon debuting, you see this fiery young star who's got a little bit of mystique about it, right? There's that whole, the contacts and all this kind of stuff is just like almost a hybrid, can I say it that way? A hybrid. As if she has this other power that come in here. And in this, you make her very human. She's very down to the core of sad, reflecting, and that's the point of it. But it also makes me wonder what they're really trying to present here. And, of course, getting back to that, who is Ember Moon? So I think that's very interesting. I thought too, in a way, though, it was great, but I kind of felt like, I'm like, okay, I get it. You're sad. I understand, but it's almost a little whiny, if I can say it that way. Like, well, it shoulda, coulda. But I think, I'll forget this later on. It's not that big a deal. I'm just saying it did come off a little whiny in a way to me. I appreciated, though, at the end, the biggest key moment was saying that she wanted to be the one to beat Asuka. And yes, that put something in my mind that this feud could be something even bigger, right? It may not be on the level of, the one to beat the one and 160 to 1. Right. The Paul Heyman thing, You're not going to have a Paul Heyman with Ember Moon, but I think it does present a big takeover, like a Brooklyn takeover where it's finally her opportunity and she can pull it off. It'd be a big, huge deal. So I appreciate that build, and I actually kind of get excited about it. I really do, because I think once they get more under their belt, it's going to be better.
Yeah, I mean, these guys have competed against each other before their match here at the last takeover before in Shimmer. But I think what they're doing here is really, your Ember Moon has been dominant. She's been this super badass chick, and now they're sort of transitioning her to try to get sympathy. And that's understandable. Obviously, it's her first loss here on NXT and all this stuff, and they really want you to just sort of, I think, connect and identify with her, maybe in a way that you hadn't before is all I think they're going for here. And I think it worked pretty well. Yeah,
and then you're not wrong. I think that their thought process is fine for what they're trying to do. Come from my point of view, I want to see it in a different way. But I'm not every casual fan, and that's fine. And I think if they get the more human side, it may actually work out better than the way I want it to work out, honestly. So I'm still looking forward to it. I think they did a fine job with it.
Yeah, she still has a return match on NXT TV coming her way, I'm sure, to where she gets to look just as fiery and badass as she had beforehand. Let's talk about this next match, because I'm really excited to talk about this, especially to get your thoughts on it. I'm very familiar with both of these girls. We've only become recently familiar with Ruby Riot / Heidi Lovelace, but we get to see the debut of Kimberly, if you're a fan of Chikara or AAW or anywhere else that does women's wrestling. Kimberly Frankly, her actual name is what she debuts as. She comes in here and does a little quick 2.5-minute match with Ruby Riot, where she takes the loss. She gets a little bit in, not so much to really, I think, give you a full impression of what she can do, but I think there's some elements of her there that you can take away from. And then you have Nikki Cross come in, sort of try the distraction, and it doesn't work. And it looks like Ruby Riot and Nikki Cross are bound to do great things together later on down the road, Gary.
Oh yeah, you're totally right on that. To touch on the Kimberly thing, what I think is interesting about this too is the fact that just our dynamic here. You know a lot about, Shakara and all the other indie stuff that she's done. So I'm very fresh faced. I don't know anything about her. I think she did a fine job for what she was asked to do in this, and I think it worked out good. I think for both of them because she did get the offense. It wasn't just a, like we kind of like the beginning of the show, like a 15-second squash.
Right.
So that was good, and you saw the fire. So I think that we already have someone who we can look at and say, okay, she's going to actually do something later on. Now this deal with Ruby Riot and of course Cross, I think this is really awesome. I'm a huge fan of this. I don't think there's a better pairing off a new superstar coming into the company than Ruby Riot versus Nikki Cross. I think it's excellent because if you got to think about it, it's almost like Mad Max, right? It's almost like a futuristic situation because they both look like they walked out of the apocalypse. If I could say it that way, because you got a very punk rock, and then you got the very grunge rock, if you want to say it that way, or maybe I'm even kind of going, but it's kind of like two worlds mixing. That they're both, they're not the flashy stars, right? They are very much, the I don't know, that very grungy feel about both. So that's what makes this exciting. It makes it aggressive because you've already seen Nikki Cross kind of freak out, basically kill people, even men, right? Bounce their heads off the ropes, off the mat, whatever that she's got to do. And now you got Ruby Riot, who's just as aggressive and very tough. So I think this is making up to be something that's going to be really exciting. And this, really, you just got the presence of Cross out there kind of watching, which is good. They at least are still saying this is going to happen. You wait, you bide your time. I kind of also like the fact that they didn't mix it up. I kind of like that they didn't give away too much already, right? So it's something I'm very excited about. I know most people probably are like, oh, my God, you're reading too much into this, but I think it's going to be really, really fun.
No, I think this could lead up to something big, whether it's on NXT TV or a TakeOver show. This is a feud that can really help make Riot. I feel like Nikki Cross and Sanity, with how well they've been booked, can really make anybody interesting at this point. And I think you're dead on. It's punk rock versus like batshit insane death metal, and then that's what makes it so interesting. Is it's not clean cut. It's very down and dirty, and that's what I think could make this interesting, especially if they decide to go like no holds barred or something with this. If it gets to that level, we could be in for something really special, and especially in a division that sort of, I don't want to say lacks depth, but lacks big stars. This could be something that gives the division a real shot in the arm.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's something that also doesn't have to be short. This can go on for quite a while, and the fact that there's other superstars that are probably on this roster that could team up with Ruby Riot. I really feel that way because I can't name everybody that's still a part of this roster off the top of my head that can have that style. It's just so sucky the TM61's not healthy.
Right.
I could see them totally teaming up with her and making a good pairing. But there's probably some other guys. I just think there's some other people that can be involved if they have to be. I don't want it to happen. I just want it to be singles. But if they're going to add in Sanity, you've got to have that parallel. So,
yeah, and that's where I think things get interesting right now because there's got to be a time where they pull the trigger and let Sanity chase after all the championships at some point. And we've seen Nikki already sort of in the hunt for that. And you look at not Big Damo. That's who it is. I'm just forgetting.
Killian Dane.
Thank you, Killian and Alexander Wolf. Having them chase the tag titles would be kind of rough right now because it's Authors of Pain obviously running around with those things, and EY of course could challenge Bobby Roode. I feel like because they're very different heels. But I still have to wonder if they're planning on pulling the trigger with that at all, or if they're just going to keep the spotlight on Roderick and Noe Jose and Cassius Ohno now that Ty Dillinger is moving on to the main roster Heavenly Lights,
Yeah, that's very true. And I've been saying for a long time, ever since Sanity kind of showed up, is that's exactly the journey I'm looking forward to with them. So that's what makes this even more interesting. Is who's going to be holding the NXT title? Who's going to be holding the NXT Women's title? Who's going to be holding any of these titles when we get to the point where they're going to be all chasing it, probably pretty close to once? And so. That's what makes this feud even more interesting, because is one of them going to end up with a title? Is that going to be a part of this feud? And I could see it being possibly something that ends up being the case.
Maybe so. I mean, we also could be in the throes, at least as far as the women division goes, of creating a new sort of top four to circle around with Ember, Nikki, Ruby, and if Asuka's going to be around a lot longer than Asuka for sure. But if not, then you have Peyton Royce or Billie Kay in there too, who get a video package where they're walking around the back and sort of talking about remodeling the backstage area, and then they make fun of Aaliyah and Liv Morgan, who are in the trainer's room, and Liv sort of has enough of their mockings and shoves Billie Kay into an ice bath, and she has a good freak out.
I think I would too, though.
Yeah,
that looked pretty cold. Oof, man. But that's neat. What's cool about this is you get Liv Morgan and Aaliyah back in the picture. To kind of, and of course Billie Kay and Peyton Royce as well. All four of them really aren't a part of the NXT Women's title scene right now at the moment, so they've got to have some camera time. And this is actually good. This is something it's not the same old hubbub, right? They're in the ring and this and this, and so this kind of backstage thing with the NXT is doing, especially with Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, I think it's really cool, because it kind of gives you a look at the Performance Center, which we don't get a chance to look at a lot. Breaking Ground's only around every once in a while, and if they've made any updates, you don't get a chance to see it in the Performance Center. So this is kind of cool. It's like getting an inside view at the Performance Center. It's also getting a chance to look at it through the eyes of, what could possibly happen backstage, So I appreciate it. I think, and some people may say, oh, it's just silly, but I think they did a good job with this, and it's something that I think fans are enjoying.
I think this is something that you could do, at least with Peyton and Billie, a lot more, because they excel at this sort of thing, where the talking and living the gimmick, as it were, and this is where I think both of them shine the most as far as this part. It's not to say that they're bad wrestlers. I just think they're better at this sort of thing. This is what generates heat anyways for them as far as feud goes, so I am all down for this. Next up, we get the debut of Drew McIntyre taking on Oney Lorcan. They go about 6 minutes. This is one of those hard-hitting sprints that I'm a huge fan of watching, just because you can't really take your eyes off of it. And Oney with some stiff headbutts and chops here and there, but this is really all about really letting Drew show off his incredible new arsenal that maybe you haven't seen if you haven't been watching TNA or Evolve or Insane Championship Wrestling or wherever the globe-trotting Drew McIntyre / Galloway has gone in his time away from WWE. But he looks like a star. He wrestles incredibly well, even better than when he was here the first time, and I think he's the whole package right now, Gary.
Yeah, he really is. And it's not really a surprise, I think, for maybe us, because we've followed Drew McIntyre, whatever you want to call him, for a while now. We saw him in Impact, and of course, watching, like you said, him on the indie circuit, you still saw plenty of those matches. You knew the guy was super talented. He was ready to come back. And I was super, super excited to see that he did make that decision to come back and be a part of WWE and try to get back to where he once was and possibly get further. And I think what he's going to do here in NXT is prove that, right? It's right here in this match alone. You see the guy is seasoned. Like, he's never stepped away from the ring. He's been full force, and he's looking good. And Oney Lorcan's a great matchup for him as well.
Right.
I mean, I love Lorcan. This guy, he's kind of like the next Ty Dillinger. I really feel that way, because he's so talented, and he's going to be one of those guys that keeps saying, oh, when's he going to the main roster? This guy just sticks around, and I have a feeling he's going to be sticking around for quite a while. They don't really use the word enhancement talent anymore. I don't think they do, at least, but he's almost like the next guy that's just so good, but he continues to be the guy that enhances everybody else. And so I hope, for Oney Lorcan's sake, he's not, but I just love the guy. I had to say that. But Drew Galloway, Drew McIntyre, I got to remember McIntyre's back.
Right.
I love the entrance, the look of him. the entrance itself wasn't anything super grandiose. It was nothing like you talked about earlier where it was so theatrical and all that, but it's Drew McIntyre. You don't really need that as much. But not only that, the way he comes out, he's very serious. He's just that presence. So I'm not bothered by that at all. I think it's exciting to have him back, and he proved in this match why he deserves to be back. So.
Yeah, a lot of people speculated that the reason he left the first time around was because he didn't necessarily have the quote-unquote look, and like he didn't look like a tough guy. Well, now with the beard and some age on him, like you cross this guy in an alley or the middle of the street in broad daylight, he's probably going to punch you right in the face. And I've seen him live plenty of times, and the dude is huge. Like, I mean, I think the NXT, at least as far as putting him in the ring with Biff Busick / Oney Lorcan, who isn't exactly the tallest person either, but really showing off how big this guy is in this match helped a lot. And I'm with you too. I think Oney Lorcan, whether he's going to be on 205 Live, as he made his debut on there a couple weeks ago, or if he's going to be NXT bound for a while, which I think he'd be he's great in his role here. I think he's going to have success no matter where he goes, but the way they're working him right now, I'm kind of a fan of.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that totally. I just get worried. I get worried for guys like this because you see they have so much talent, but you also kind of see holes in their gimmick, or maybe the way they're presented is not at the highest level that it needs to be. So, right. It's my only fear. Great in-ring work, maybe not the best gimmick so far for him.
But there's just not a lot to him yet either. They haven't really decided to put the microscope on him and really let us take a look at this guy. So,
true, very true. Fair enough. So,
yeah, and then we just got this main event segment left to talk about. Is Shinsuke Nakamura pretty much says goodbye to NXT. He came here a seasoned champion from New Japan, obviously, even though he doesn't say that, and says he wanted to face the best, and the best was here in NXT, and he fought plenty of them. But now, of course, it's time to move on, and sort of NXT helped create everything that he's about right now, which is, of course, the chants and the music and the energy and all these other things, and a pretty emotional goodbye, I think, for him. The NXT crowd obviously ate this up too, and then he had everybody from the back come out and give him a round of applause, and even Finn Balor comes out, gives him a big hug.
Yeah, this is special. It's really nice. It's a great send-off for a guy that, may have only been there a year, but he was a big part of NXT, even from day one, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I was there, sitting in the seat, super excited in Dallas, waiting for, Nakamura to come out, and it was a special time. I mean, the eruption of the crowd for this guy, day one, was just amazing. So, saying that, he had a great run here in NXT, did everything really he needed to do, and probably could do. I mean, he's such a big talent. You can't keep him in, this NXT system too long. So I'm super excited for him, what he's going to do on the main roster. But, a wonderful send-off, very classy. They did a good job with it, and he gave his heart. Just a great way to kind of send him off.
I don't know about did everything. There are a couple matches I still would have loved to see him have in NXT, like taking on Cassius Ohno or Hideo Itami, but you're completely right as far as accomplishments go. Right after Finn left, he was pretty much coming in and ready to take over the job of headlining the brand and keeping the fans interested, and he did all that spectacularly well, and maybe even exceeded expectations as far as WWE went, and maybe himself, just with how much the crowd got attached to him and his theme song and his entrance and all these things that make him so special. In Japan, completely translated. I don't think they could have asked for a cleaner transition for the guy.
Yeah, you're totally right, and I think that we're going to get a lot of exciting things coming up, and you don't know, we may still get a chance to see at least one of those guys face Nakamura. I mean, there could be the possible chance that Cassius Ohno finally one day will walk on to one of these main rosters of NXT, Raw or SmackDown. Hideo Itami, I'm a little bit worried about. He can't stay healthy, and I don't think he's going to come up to that level until he proves he can stay healthy for a long period of time. So
I don't think he's as far along in the English-speaking department either as Shinsuke is.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a minute if he's not studying. So.
Well, that's NXT for us, Gary.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate it. Everybody who came and checked out the show tonight, of course. If you want to go find out all our content, once again, go check out W2Mnet.com or go subscribe to the Wrestling to the Max. Of course, you can get everything there. Just want to let you also know we are going to finally have our episode 142, I believe, of Wrestling to the Max. We're kind of coming out a little bit later, but it's going to be here. We've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about, so don't miss that episode as well. And trust me, we will be here for all your wrestling needs. So if you want to go ahead and share this to all your friends, do it. Let everybody know what we got going on here. But until next time we meet, we will see you guys down the road.
Have a good one, guys.